You know what? I'm just gonna hop right in. We've all been watching the hearings this morning, I'm guessing, and I was just like, I at one point where they were calling for closing statements, I was like, I'll just go start my show up and just get it rolling, because these are closing statements and we know to where. And then they start playing like kind of almost like a teaser for season 2 kind of thing, where they're playing videos. And you're like, oh, that's intriguing. Oh, good, I missed that part. Oh, we need to show that again. And of course, I today's afternoon show will of course have to be named Big Massive Dumps. I don't know what else to call it, quite frankly. I will say that a lot of what there, that old adage that whatever, like, the Washington is showbiz for ugly people. That was the old kind of term. um, this is, it's interesting to watch them read from teleprompters and kind of coordinate this presentation, because that's what it is. And the right wing is flipping out about it's all political theater and yada yada yada. The reason they say political theater, of course, is because they want, along with they want the illusion that means it is therefore untrue, because it is theatrical in nature, or it is descriptive, or it is, in this. But the problem for them is it's a presentation, and secondly, if it is theatrical, if the point is to be theatrical, it is to tell a deeper truth, which is the point of theater. That you don't have all the time in the world to explain every detail of something, so you narrow it down to the points that will make people understand that they either were right to feel the way they were about how wrong something was, or they have been wrong about how right they thought something was. In the case of Trump's thingamadig. And so good. Yes. And I called him weak. This is going to be fun. I mean, they hate Barr to begin with, so none of this is going to move the needle when they. By the way, good morning, chat room. Hi, everybody. Hold on, let me move this up, and we'll DC is TV for radio personalities. That's sweet. There you guys are. Good morning, everybody. A lot of folks are saying like they should have correct just how many movies are made and edited exactly. Committee chat all over 2,000 Mules. Oh, I know. I love the fact that he laughed at 2,000 Mules, which means he has seen it. That's the great part of it. He watched 2,000, like you guys watched it. Many of you watched 2,000 Mules with me, and CSL is busy, creating the 2 slices of it so I can post the entire takedown. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who's done it note for note. It's mule shit, right? But yeah, Barr laughed just after bringing it up, and just so, God. Barr watched it on my show. That's entirely possible. No, will you be joining the Midas Touch coverage? Not this morning. At some point I would like to, but like it would have to fall, on a morning I don't have my morning show or whatever. That's okay. I just don't want to interrupt, their kind of airing of it at all, because I love those guys and I feel like we have some overlap in our audience, and so I just, I'm just being a mensch. I'm trying at least. The general thoughts, I thought it was fascinating this morning. I mean, there's thank you, Steven, to the super chat. Appreciate that. Welcome to HAL Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. I didn't even properly greet everyone. I do this Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at this time. I bumped it an hour today because the hearings were going on, and I'd rather watch them as I would with you, so that we actually absorb the information and be able to respond to what we see there. The fascinating part for me was the volume of Trump's cabinet and the people around him who were not just not buying the argument, but were actively telling him, this is bullshit, it won't work, you're not going to actually move the needle at all, it's a waste of time. Two mules dump. Media is flipping about the grifting. Oh yeah, the story about how he's basically that's the other thing. Remember how I was saying everybody's like he needs to go to jail. You need to throw him right away. No, you need his deepest followers to see the grift before you do it. Because if you throw Trump in jail and you just kind of like, on the merits of Jan 6, you did a big trial and then boop, in a month and a half, thank you, Jovan. Can Hugo Chavez be questioned under oath by Long Island medium and resolve this once and for all? I don't think so. I think he's pleading the fifth. El Fito. Which is how they call it in the vernacular down there. Yeah. The fascinating part for me is just, well, if I read the chat, I get distracted. You guys are wonderful. The primary thing I think people need to recognize is what the committee is doing right now. Is I've told you guys a bunch of times that that Trump in the Georgia case in particular, because he has been playing this whole I believe it was stolen thing since basically a couple of weeks after. I mean, obviously there have been moments where he's, he came up for air from lunacy temporarily in an attempt to, somebody talked some temporary sense into him to salvage his legacy, blah, blah, blah. And his ego made him sit down. Oh, thank you, Sailor. Here's for 2,000 orange jumpsuits. They're going to have to stitch them all together. That even with that, he has been pretty consistently saying he believes it was stolen and believing the people who tell him it's stolen. And we all know it's an act of ego, and I personally believe he's full of shit. But the important part of convicting him in the Georgia case would be a knowledge that he is asking them to do something illegal in that find me some fake votes, get me elected, that kind of thing. As opposed to, I know personally there are 100,000 votes out there. I just need a few of them so I can fix this. And if he could convince a jury that he genuinely believed that it was stolen from him, in that case, they'd have to go, well, what he was, asking for was them to find real votes for him. And that's a genuine legal argument. That is the issue at hand in, say, Georgia. What the committee is doing is showing that he absolutely was bullshitting everyone. He was raising money off the idea when everyone around him was saying, no, this thing, no, that didn't work, no, and he would move on to the next one, trying to find one he could hang his hat on, not because it was going to be any more true, but he was trying to find one in many ways that they were looking into, that they had not looked into fully yet, I suppose, and that he could say, well, there's this. This is the dead people voted here, because they didn't look at the dead people voting there accusation yet. And yet they all looked at all of them, and every time he would bring one up, they're like, yeah, that's bullshit. So it's fascinating to me how they're setting up two tracks here, and you can see it in what they're doing. The primary one is that he did know he lost. He was aware that he lost. And everyone around him was telling him the truth. Everybody, and not just like people like what the right would consider deep state people who are like White House counsel people who worked in the staff or something like that, or Alexander Vindman types that were existing in there before he came in, but people he had appointed and his own daughter. That's they're setting up this idea that everybody that he considers believable told him this was bullshit. And that means that, and then the fact that he was raising money off of it and calling it a defense fund, and the money was not going, there was no defense fund. That was the thing at the end, which is so great. There is no legal defense. We know this. I mean, you and I, come on, we know this. But the people who sent him money might have actually thought that the money they were sending in was specifically going to pay legal fees or pay for lawsuits or pay for, like stays and holds and blah, blah, blah. Right? Over the course of, at least the first 10 to 12 months of it. Does this count as turd polishing? I suppose. Ivanka looked like a robot or a Stepford wife. I think she looks like a blow-up doll made out of marzipan. I've said that, and it's largely the filter she's using. I don't think she normally looks like that. She looks like a shapeshifter version of her. I don't know why Q isn't flipping off. Also, by the way, did anybody notice? And I'm gonna see it like when they talked about the death threats that the lawyer in the I think he was in the campaign lawyer or whatever his name was, who was saying there's no there, and he went through the whole they investigated the fact that those were rolling cases, not a suitcase, all that bullshit about the voting in Fulton County. That guy was getting very specific death threats towards his children, and there was a hashtag Q. Did you guys see that in the let's see, death threats Trump Fulton County. I'll see if I can find the picture. If somebody will have posted the oh, it's going back the whole thing. Latest. They posted it up when he was up there. They redacted it so it didn't show his children's names. I don't know if you guys saw that. Yeah, but there was a hashtag Q at the tail end of one of those. I'll see if I can find it this afternoon, because I know we're going to be, because you know that Fox is going to avoid this entirely. They could probably talk about it more today than they could the other day, simply because oh yeah, we're going to do Mike Pillow's next movie, the voter fraud movie that he's coming out with. Don't worry, we're going to cover the whole thing. Hal, does the RNC pay Trump's legal bills if the DOJ files charges against him? No. They might. I mean, they have in some of the challenges by the campaign and the election, but he is not a candidate currently. I mean, he was a former president fighting an election. There was some wiggle room for the RNC to pay some of those bills in their mind. I do not see that happening. Yeah, Fox aired the hearing today because it's morning. They didn't do it in prime time because it would have interrupted Tucker. I guess they learned, because the ratings always win. 2,000 Mules has already been banned. Has already banned millions on PPV. Right? I don't know what you mean. Has been banned from millions seeing it on pay-per-view, or you mean just because services aren't going to carry it? They don't have any. Again, this goes to like the Twitter thing. Right-wingers become such fucking communists when this all starts, because every time they're like, they won't air my movie on their service, censorship, my freedom of speech rights are violated. Like, dude, they don't have to carry any movie they don't want to. If they think their customer base will want it, or it lines up with the kind of entertainment they want to have, or it fits in some sort of deep pocket of shows that will keep you clicking through, then they're going to post it. If it's a piece of shit and it's boring and it's unconvincing and it's going to embarrass them, they're going to take it down. Giselle, you think we'd make a good astrological study? I agree. I think there's definitely a window there. Yeah. Welcome, by the way, if you're just joining me and you've been watching the Jan 6 committee hearings and the like. Yeah, we'll see. Let me see if I can find that. Hold on real quick. There we go. See if we have the. I'll see if I can find the clip. Basically doing it. Yeah, I'll find it. Hold on. Because he was just. Oh, here it is. This is the. Let's see if I can stretch this out big enough so you guys can see it. Yeah. This is the email I was telling you guys about. Yeah, Aaron Rupar posted, this is the freeze of it. See right there? Look at that right there. See that? Hashtag Q. Heads on spikes, treasonous Schmitz. You lied, you're a traitor. You a traitor. All right. Perhaps 75 cuts and 20 bullets will soon arrive. AF. Rhino stole election. We steal lives. Q. Look at that. There's Q in all of these. At least the ones they showed. But these are the ones that name his children in particular or his wife. Just ugh. But again, aren't the Q folks supposed to be the pro-lifers? We got to save the babies, right? But he's got an 8-year-old and they're gonna and a 9-year-old or whatever, and they're gonna shoot his kids. Yeah, that part I don't get. The entirety of we're going to rescue your children from your treasonous ways and raise them in a way that understands that the Lord Jesus is blah, blah, blah. Like, you'd expect something like that. Nah, they're just going to kill his children. Like, that part, right? That's, I love the dead people voting. Let's see. Trump... Barr. Trump said there were more people voted in Philadelphia than there were voters. That was absolutely rubbish. Right. And remember when we went through this? We went through this in the Lindell things where I was like, they're using the numbers from the primary and versus the general. I talked about this. We did this during what absolute proof or whatever the shit that was.
I'd like to turn to President Trump's false allegations about election integrity in Philadelphia. The Attorney General discussed these allegations at some length.
You know, the idea, the president has repeatedly suggested that there was some kind of outpouring of unexpected votes in inner city areas like Philadelphia as recently as January 13th when he walked off the NPR set. He was asked by the interviewer, what's your evidence of fraud? And he said more people voted in Philadelphia than there were voters. And that was absolute rubbish. The turnout in Philadelphia was in line with the state's turnout. And in fact, it was not as impressive as many suburban counties. And there was nothing...
By the way, I would say that's because of killed votes in that area by people who could. You know, they tried to suppress it as best they could. Thank you, Time Burnett, Time Brit for subscribing on Prime.
Range about the Philadelphia turnout. It wasn't like there was all these unexpected votes that came out in Philadelphia. So, I think once you actually look at the votes and then there's an obvious explanation. For example, in Pennsylvania, Trump ran weaker than the Republican ticket generally.
Ouch.
Ran weaker than two of the state candidates. He ran weaker than the congressional delegation running for federal Congress, and he ran weaker than the Republican, I think. I haven't looked at this recently, but he generally was a weak element on the Republican ticket. So
that's true. Ow. Oh, it's got to sting. He must be grinding his teeth right now.
That does not suggest that the election was stolen by fraud. How about...
Oh, God, it's so fun. Let's see. Richard Johnny testifies he personally told Trump allegations about smuggled ballots. Oh, yeah. This is the part where they're talking about, this guy, Donoghue's testimony is friggin' brutal. Like, every time they brought this dude up, he was like, you could just tell, like, it was so depressing to work for somebody that stupid.
Donoghue, we talked at some length about whether or not the White House or the president was informed about the Antrim report. On the results...
Sorry, I love this, because we went through this with all the Lindell shit, and I felt like, I have to say, to some degree, I felt so alone going through all those Mike Pillow movies and busting all this bullshit by myself. And now the committee is basically cribbing from my notes. It's lovely.
The investigations, the interviews that have gone on Fulton County, how would those results have been communicated to the White House, to the president?
I don't know how they were initially communicated. I do know that they came up in subsequent conversations with the president, and Dag Rose and I essentially told him we looked into that, and it's just not true.
Okay.
It's just not true. Not there's nothing there, or we can't really find it. None of them said like we can't find anything. They're like it's just not true. They checked all the numbers. Amoeba Steppien, thank you so much for this Tony Award. That's what this is, right? Yes.
So he was informed.
That's right.
I told the president myself that several times in several conversations that these allegations about ballots being smuggled in a suitcase and run through the machine several times.
Also, we talked about this too. Each ballot has a unique UPC symbol on it, like the effect. Either some places use QR codes, other places use like just kind of a binary marker on the bottom of it that makes it unique. It does not attach it to the voter, so you still vote in private, so nobody can go back in and rescan, hey, who voted for these people? We can get them once they're in office. But it's unique. It means there's not another like it. So if you ran it 10 times, it would still only be counted once. This is the stupidest thing.
It was not true that we looked at the video, we interviewed the witnesses. It was not true.
Ouch. Oh, it's the zinger. This dude, the video clip thing where he's like, no, they didn't play, they only played part of the clip. Again, this is why I do everything long form, baby.
Was actually an official lockbox where ballots were kept safe. We found out that there was a mistake in terms of a misunderstanding that they were done counting ballots or tallying ballots for the night. And the partisan watchers that was assigned by each of the respective parties were announced to send home. But once they realized the mistake, someone from the Secretary of State's office had indicated that, no, we're not done for the night. You need to go ahead and continue counting. So once they packed up the lockbox full of ballots, they brought back the official ballot box again and continue to tally the ballots from the lockbox. Unfortunately, during the Senate hearing, Mr. Giuliani only played a clip that showed them pulling out the official ballot box from under the table and referring to that as a smoking gun of a fraud in Fulton County. But in actuality, in review of the entire video,
he was drunk. Sorry.
It showed that was actually an official ballot box that was kept underneath the table.
Yeah, we watched that whole thing too. You can watch the entirety of the video that they post on. It's like, remember how that we were talking about like 12 hours of footage? And they're like, aha, okay, piss off. But we watched them, like them arrive. We watched them, like there's limited space. People need to walk. So they put some of them under the tables. That's where they stored stuff. Nothing was hidden. A bunch of people who were working there all fucking day went over and took some, like they got a ballot box and they started counting those ballots. And then there were several still left under there. Or they would move ones from the big stack into there. And then you would get it from under there when you were done with the box that you had. Like it was just, it's amazing how they turn this like, perfunctory insanity, just like they turn every act of normalcy into a giant conspiracy. Yeah, Rudy was drunk on election night. Well, I mean, he saw the polls, he knew he was going to need a stiff one.
And then we saw them pack up because the announcement that they thought they were done for the night. And then once the announcement was made that you should continue counting, they brought the ballot box out and they continued to count. The FBI interviewed the individuals that are depicted in the videos that purportedly were double, triple counting of the ballots and determined that nothing irregular happened in the counting and the allegations made by Mr. Giuliani were false.
That's a lovely way of saying it. They're so businesslike. I really appreciate it. Let's hear about a drunk Giuliani. You want to hear that part?
Him to await the counting of votes and not to declare victory on election night. The president understood even before the election that many more Biden voters had voted by mail because President Trump ignored the advice of his campaign experts and told his supporters only to vote in person.
I beg to differ. He told them to do both. Remember the whole thing? Like, hold on. Wait a second. Trump tells supporters to vote twice. Remember this? Remember this whole thing? He didn't tell them to just vote by. He told them to vote twice. Vote by mail and once in person, igniting a fear. Where he says, like, show up again if you vote. Let them send it in and let them go vote. Trump said in an interview on Wednesday. And if the system is as good as they say it is, then obviously they won't be able to vote in person. Trump has repeatedly asserted without evidence. By the way, these are the very same people that were turned away. And he's like, this woman, dignified, wore her hat. She loves to vote. She wanted to vote because she loves her country. And then she shows up and they told her that someone else had already voted with her ballot. And she was shocked and surprised. And she left the place demoralized and sad. She got all dressed up for nothing. Yeah. Danny, I don't per se hate Donald Trump. I hate his lack of moral character, ethics, and the fact that he sexually assaults women. That no pun intended, that rubs me the wrong way. Also, the fact that he's a failure. And by the way, do I look like someone who is overwhelmed with hate?
Donald Trump knew before the election that the counting of those mail-in ballots in several states would not begin until late in the day and would not be complete for multiple days. This was expected, reported, and widely known. You will also hear testimony that President Trump rejected the advice of his campaign experts on election night. And
why would you want to talk to the people who've run your campaign, who helped you get elected in the first place, who've worked with you for years, when you can listen to Rudy Giuliani, who literally at one point was viewed as America's mayor and has fucked his entire legacy? And by the way, why wouldn't you listen to a guy who a month before had been the accidental star of the new Borat movie as he made a move on a woman he thought was 15?
Instead, followed the course recommended by an apparently inebriated Rudy Giuliani to just claim he won and insist that the vote counting stop, to falsely claim everything was fraudulent. He falsely told the American people that the election was not legitimate.
Also, by the way, this is how drunk Rudy was. If that was the case, there would be no winner. And no one would be sworn in, so Trump wouldn't be president during the transition. You don't get to just stick around in office like you're like you've got squatters' rights or some shit. Pelosi would have been president. If you'd have dragged, if this case had actually gotten its teeth in and said there was fraud and blah, 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 we need to work it out. And since you can't tell which way the fraud went, which is part of what Trump's plan was when he constructed large portions of the actual fraud himself, when he actually bought the fake votes, that, you know, while that was litigated, Pelosi would be president. So there you go.
In his words, quote, a major fraud. Millions of Americans believed him. Second, pay attention to what
and hundreds of thousands of Russian bots.
Donald Trump and his legal team said repeatedly about Dominion voting machines.
Thanks, TLK Knitting.
Far-flung conspiracies with a deceased Venezuelan communist allegedly pulling the strings. This was, quote, complete nonsense, as Bill Barr said. President Trump's own campaign advisors, his Department of Justice, and his cybersecurity experts all told him the same thing.
Hal should cover the next episode of Rudy's Common Sense. Good idea, Delusional Mama. I can't wait to see it.
So the very next day, the president released a video rehashing some of the very same claims that his chief law enforcement officer had told him were, quote, nonsense.
Here's an example. This is Michigan. at 6:31 in the morning.
Oh my God, we did this one. This was so funny. Let me show you.
A vote dump of 149,000.
By the way, the high-tech quality. This is a man who is president of the United States, who literally has, by gift of the taxpayers, access to a myriad of AV sources. And I mean, and it looks like they just had somebody run down to Kinko's.
772 votes came in unexpectedly. We were winning by a lot.
And then they started counting the other votes.
That batch was received in horror.
In horror. That's fucking hilarious. I'd forgotten about some of these.
In horror.
In horror. I swallowed a bug. You're an errand boy, bringing votes in the middle of the night. Horror. The horror.
Those votes were received in horror.
In horror. We have a.
How do you not? You got to cut back to the. Please, like Jan 6. Please, C-SPAN, somebody give me an audience shot in the corner, because you got to see that some of the people in this audience have got to be just like. Oh.
Company that's very suspect. Its name is Dominion. With the turn of a dial or the change of a chip.
I've forgotten about this one. We did this one live a long time ago.
You can press a button for Trump and the vote goes to Biden.
No, it doesn't.
What kind of a system is this?
It's an imaginary one you have in your big stupid head. God damn, that is so funny. Okay.
And while a copy was being made, he said, this is absolute proof that the Dominion machines were.
By the way, Mike Lindell was wandering around the White House at this time, and absolute proof became the name of one of his specials.
Rigged. The report means that I'm going to have a second term. And then he gave me a copy of the report. And as he talked more and more about it,
Jesus.
I sat there flipping through the report and looking through it. And to be frank, it looked very amateurish to me. Didn't have the credentials of the people involved, but I didn't see any real qualifications. And the statements were made very conclusory, like, these machines were designed to, engage in fraud or something to that effect, but I didn't see any supporting information for it. And
well, of course you wouldn't. They're in the third file cabinet on the sublevel D of the adrenochrome factory in the caverns underneath the White House. Derp.
I was somewhat demoralized because I thought, boy, if he really believes this stuff, he has, lost contact with he's become detached from reality if he really believes this stuff. On the other hand, when I went into this and would, tell him how crazy
By the way, fuck Bill Barr for knowing this and having this whole conversation while this is going on and not immediately quitting and going, forget it. No, this guy's off the deep end. The stuff he's saying is just garbage. He's insane. You know what I mean? Like, doing this months again after he sold his book.
Some of these allegations were. There was never an indication of interest in what the actual facts were. In my opinion then and my opinion now, is that the election was not stolen by fraud. And I haven't seen anything since the election that changes my mind on that, including the 2000 Mules movie.
Ouch. For the record, Debbie D'Souza's acting, you know, at the very least, can we get her a Razzie? Can we at least do that? Can we get Debbie D'Souza's entrance into a Razzie? How do you think Trump donors can now sue to get their money back? I don't think so. No, because the sort of the legalese when you donate, you have no recourse on those on his paperwork on his website rather. When you fill it out and you donate, it's gone. There's all this, like, it's the same shit that's on Truth Social, that there's arbitration and it's going to cost it, blah, blah, blah. You thought she was electrifying. She was riveting. So good. All right, here we go. So let's check out some more of this. By the way, you're watching HAL Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. We don't normally do clips and audio on the morning show. It's more like a conversation that we just kind of have about stuff. But since this all just came through and there was a bunch of this stuff, it's pretty fascinating to me. Like the nature of the testimony, especially from the people. And this is, like I said, this is the case they're building. That everybody that Trump hired to be the people who did the real business, who took care of the crossed the T's and dotted the I's. He just decided that, apropos of nothing, that they were just full of shit in one day. Right. Yeah, you fell for the con, suck it up. Yeah, no, that money is gone.
I tried to.
Oh my God. Please let there be a diamond and silk clip about the committee. Oh my Lord.
To, again, put this in perspective and to try to put it in very clear terms to the president. And I said something to the effect of, sir, we've done dozens of investigations, hundreds of interviews. The major allegations are not supported by the evidence developed. We've looked at Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada. We're doing our job. Much of the info you're getting is false. And then
By the way, that's clear. Their use of which parts of the testimony are very important, because they're making sure you know that his lawyers, his daughter, his cabinet members, and in some cases his friends were telling him this is bullshit. And even Rudy Giuliani, who was drunk, saying, just declare you won, in and of itself is an awareness that he didn't win, just call it. Because then you can bulldoze everyone. Try a Bush v. Gore.
I went into, for instance, this thing from Michigan, this report about 68% error rate. Reality is it was only 0.0063% error rate, less than 1 in 15,000.
By the way, all of which benefited, it was in Trump's favor.
What?
I'm just saying, for the record, every time there was a glitch, Trump got more votes than he should have.
So the president accepted that. He said, okay, fine, but what about the others? And again, this gets back to the point that there were so many of these allegations that when you gave him a very direct answer on one of them, he wouldn't fight us on it, but he would move to another allegation. So then I talked a little bit about the Pennsylvania.
Well, he wouldn't fight them on it, but the next day he would come out and pretend they hadn't told him it was bullshit.
Truck driver, this is another allegation that had come up.
All right.
And this claim was by a truck.
Yeah, the truck driver who allegedly drove, a truckload of ballots across from New York to Philly, which is weird. Yeah. Oh yeah, this part was beautiful. This goes towards the whole idea that he had awareness that he was lying, and that he was not only was he aware he was lying because everybody was telling him it was bullshit, but he was raising money off of his own people on the lie, and it wasn't even going to this alleged, defense fund that he was setting up. It was just going to the Save America PAC, which was just to pay Mar-a-Lago's bills. This stuff. Like this.
And I'm senior investigative counsel with the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. Between Election Day and January 6th, the Trump campaign sent millions of fundraising emails to Trump supporters, sometimes as many as 25 a day.
By the way, having watched 2,000 Mules, I am very disappointed that she's not in a warehouse surrounded by blue computer screens with ducts showing all over the place and wires coming down from the ceiling. I don't know what she's trying to sell us, but unless there's dramatic music and and sort of a low rent blacklist set, I'm not.
The emails claimed the quote left-wing mob was undermining
the irony.
The election, implored supporters to quote step up to protect the integrity of
become a right-wing mob on January 6th.
The election, and encouraged them to quote fight back. But as the Select Committee has demonstrated, the Trump campaign knew these claims of voter fraud were false, yet they continued to barrage small-dollar donors with emails, encouraging them to donate to something called the Official Election Defense Fund. The Select Committee discovered no such fund existed.
I don't believe there is actually a fund called the Election Defense Fund.
Bazow! Ba-boom! Just sit on that for a second. Remember all the stories about Trump, like if you sign up to support the Save America PAC or the Defense Fund, it would auto debit your account for months, and in his birthday month it did it twice because it took the whatever you're donating $50 that one time. It don't like hold on Trump fundraising, in case you guys don't remember, emails, double, yeah, this business. Hold on one second, drag this over here. Online donors were guided into weekly, motherfucker, weekly. You give them $25, and instead of next month taking $25 and the month after that, every fucking week, whatever you signed up for, every week. Jesus. Complaints to banks and credit card companies soared, but the money helped keep Donald Trump's struggling campaign afloat. Stacey Blatt was in hospice care last September, listening to Rush Limbaugh's dire warnings about how badly Donald Trump's campaign needed more money when she went online and chipped in everything she could, $500. It was a big sum for the 63-year-old battling cancer and living in Kansas City on less than $1,000 a month. But that single contribution, federal records show it was her first ever, quickly multiplied. Another $500 was withdrawn the next day. Then $500 the next week. She must have done it in June. The next week, and then every week through mid-October. Jesus Christ. Nope, I guess later in the year. Holy shit. Until Miss Blatt's bank account had been depleted and frozen. When his utility and rent payments bounced, he called his brother Russell for, until Mr. Blatt's bank account had been depleted and his utility rent payments bounced, he called his brother Russell for help. When the Blatts soon discovered it was $3,000 in withdrawals by the Trump campaign in less than 30 days. Motherfucker. They called their bank and said they thought they were victims of fraud. It felt like it was a scam, but what the Blatts believed was a duplicity was actually an intentional scheme to boost revenues by the Trump campaign and for-profit company that processed its online donations, WinRed. Facing a cash crunch and getting badly outspent by Democrats, the campaign began last September to set up recurring donations by default for online donors every week until the election. And you know what? That's who he is. That's your dude, maggots. That's him. Jesus.
Is it fair to say that the Election Defense Fund was another, I think we called it a marketing tactic?
Uh-huh.
Yes. And tell us about these funds as marketing tactics.
Just the topic matter.
Yeah, just, you gotta fill the email with something. You can't just say, sign up for our latest cash grab. We're spending your money on, gold leaf toilet paper and fish delights for his fat ass. And
where money could potentially go to be, how money could potentially be used.
Yeah, how money could potentially be used. It might. Is there an asterisk next to the defense fund?
The claims that the election was stolen were so successful. President Trump and his allies raised $250 million, nearly $100 million in the first week after the election.
Ugh. What a douchebag. White House lawyer Eric Hirschman on what he said to John Eastman on January 7th. I said to him, "Are you out of your effing mind?" I said, "I only want to hear two words coming out of your mouth from now on. Orderly transition."
Focused. And in the coming days, you will see the committee move on to President Trump's broader planning for January 6th, including his plan to corrupt the Department of Justice and his detailed planning with lawyer John Eastman.
Yeah, that, by the way, Eastman's, they're going to have, either one suggestion, one direction or another through Eastman, because we saw that martial law thing on Mike Pillow's notes. They're gonna tie that in to the idea that that the Proud Boys had been conversing with Trump somehow through Roger Stone or somebody else, and they had left guns around the Capitol, and the idea was that Trump could declare martial law using the Insurrection Act, and that that would be their cue to go get the guns, and then they would just on the Capitol.
To pressure the vice president, state legislatures, state officials, and others to overturn the election. Let me leave you today with one clip to preview what you will see in one of our hearings to come. This is the testimony of White House lawyer Eric Hirschman. John Eastman called Mr. Hirschman the day after January 6th.
I mean, the nerve of Eastman. Like, they were not, he and Trump were thick as thieves, and they were not going to give up on this bullshit even after all that.
And here is how that conversation went.
I said to him, "Are you out of your effing mind?" Right? I said, I only want to hear two words coming out of your mouth from now on. Orderly transition.
By the way, my theory is, this bat with justice on it? That looks like Trump's scalp to me, Ivanka and Jared. What do you think? Like, these are like, he's got scalps. Like, this dude is, the art on his wall is that he takes scalps. By the way, scalping, often thought to be a Native American tradition, and it did become one, was something they actually got from the French, because the French actually would scalp when they were victorious on the battlefield, and then sell the hair to make wigs. The French did it as commerce back then, and Native Americans picked it up as a way of shaming the victims and maiming, and basically scaring people. It's like their equivalent of putting a head on a spike. You would find them scalped, and it scared the crap out of people. It also, by the way, in the northern Indian tribes, in the Lakota areas and the like, they could kill people and blame it on the French. That was another thing. That was that might have been the transition period between knowing about it, seeing the French do it, and adopting it themselves. The French would also buy the scalps. Yeah, it was a way of counting bodies too. You couldn't bring their hearts back, that kind of thing. So you could bring back the scalps to let them know that you actually got them. And in the case of Native American tribes, a lot of them had very specific elements to their hair that they wore all the time, certain beads or whatever. So like well-known warriors for the other tribe or whatever, you would, if you brought back that dude's scalp, you'd know it was him. Yeah. The Lakota become their enemy by using the very same tactics. Look, I've talked many times about how the Pawnee viewed the Lakota, and the fact that their name Sioux means thief and yada yada. There's a lot of back history that nobody bothers to teach. Probably for the best in some ways. Yeah, powdered wigs, exactly, right. But this dude has scalps on his fucking wall and a bat that says justice. And I swear that's like Trump, Pence, and Ivanka or some shit. I don't know what that is, but that's definitely a female or a long-haired scalp. You know. I need to know whose scalps those are supposed to be. Yeah, they're like, fuck that. And then they showed these guys like, hey man, you think it's fucking thing? You think it's fucking? This was stolen, man. This is stolen. That's stolen. Hey, ain't gonna happen, man. Ain't gonna happen. Meth? Sure, I'm on meth. I stand for the flag. No, you don't. You're with people about to carry the Confederate flag in, these douchebags.
Horror. Horror. The horror.
Back to the thread. Okay. Former Trump campaign lawyer Alexander says when he told Peter Navarro the Dominion conspiracy theories weren't adding up, Navarro accused him of being an agent of the deep state. Oh my God.
Who
I remember, like, yeah, this guy, fuck, he was just, talk about killing the messenger. This dude was always bringing the bad news to the Trump folks.
President Trump's own vice president and his top advisors also knew that there wasn't evidence to support the claims that the president was making.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else other than Mr. Meadows who asked you about the status outside of your legal group, you know, Mr. Morgan and the others you mentioned? Anyone else who asked you the status of what you were finding in your assessment of it?
Yes, sir.
Who's that?
Peter Navarro.
When did you talk to Mr. Navarro?
By the way, most of the time when they're interviewing these folks, they already know. They've got people who immediately came forward were just like, blah, blah, blah. I was standing right there. Navarro called him an agent of the deep state when he tried to, blah, and they're just checking it off. They're just making sure. They're just confirming it. They're like...
Mid-November.
Around the same time as Mr. Meadows?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me about that conversation.
The guy who was carrying the Confederate flag starts his trial today. Beautiful. Moms Russo, he would be one of those guys. Moms is in our chat at Twitch, by the way, twitch.tv/HalSparks. Subscribe if you have Amazon Prime. It doesn't cost you a dime. That guy, his trial starts today. It's interesting. You know how we talk constantly about the dying of talking points, like baby formula, that kind of, like and inflation's going to be part of the conversation. So are gas prices all through the summer. The taper over the fall, if we can get refining capacity up, especially in North America and over here, we're going to be fine. But that'll be a talking point for a while because of reality, and they'll pretend it's Biden's fault, but whatever. Anyways, but a lot of these talking points just die on the vine, and one of them is that these Jan 6ers that are in jail are political prisoners, denied their due process, and they're being held pre-trial, and for God knows how long, and their lives are ruined, blah, blah. Meanwhile, all of them are being teed up for trial. All of them. And here's another one.
I recall him asking me questions about
the derp state.
Dominion, and maybe...
And the fact that Dominion wasn't used in any of the areas that were in question in a lot of, and in the case of Dominion machines, 56% of the time Trump won counties using Dominion machines. It sounds like a bad Yelp review. It's like they bought off Dominion, and that this is my theory going forward. That Trump managed to figure out a way to hack or buy votes in the Dominion machines, but he felt he didn't get his money's worth. So he's basically this entire blather that he's leaving out, or that he's extolling during his post presidency, is basically a giant Yelp, a 1-star Yelp review about Dominion voting machines.
Some other categories of allegations of voter fraud.
Aliens from Spain.
And I remember telling him that I didn't believe the Dominion allegations because I thought the hand recount in Georgia would resolve any issues with the technology problem. And
yeah, this is one of the big ones. If you believe they counted ballots multiple times, or whatever. If you believe that they ran these ballots through 10, 50 times just to stack the votes, anytime you do a recount, the number of counted votes digitally and the number of physical ballots present would be way off the fucking charts. It wouldn't even be one of these situations where it was like, oh my God, there's 12 votes here and 16 votes there. No, they're talking about like stacks of them. A stack of 50 votes counted 4 times, right? And then again and again. There would be so much ludicrous evidence that even a baseline canvassing and a baseline recount would expose, just like everybody there would be going, Jesus Christ, these are all Trump votes. Like none of it. It's like, it's just so lazy.
With Dominion flipping votes. And I mentioned at that time that.
And also the Dominion votes, you vote, it prints it out, you can see it. See what you voted for, you can check it. How many people do you think, Trump voters, if they voted and they were like, wait, Biden, what the fuck? Like, how many of them do you think would walk back over filming themselves and go, this is what happened, look at this? Not a one. And it's not like there's 2,000 shy of the 11,000. There's 0.
The CISA, Chris Krebs, had recently.
Also, I want to see the affidavits from the assholes that are like, I tried to vote and somebody had already voted in my name. Okay, well, let's retrace your steps, shall we? Did you ever receive, let's investigate those motherfuckers, because that sounds like an attempted crime.
Released a report saying that the election was secure. And I believe Mr. Navarro accused me of being an agent of the deep state working with Chris Krebs against the president.
That's the deep state, the establishment, the rhinodinos. Everyone's the same. The Illuminati, the Pits, the Pentaveret.
And I never took another phone call from Mr. Navarro.
I think that's wise. Clips of former Jeffrey Rosen, and they're saying they tried to talk sense into Trump in the weeks following the election. No avail. We know this. Whatever. It's never an indication of interest. The actual facts were that's the Barr stuff again. We saw that one. Claims were bullshit. Yeah, you go. Rudy testified to the committee that if they let him examine all the pay, he could overturn the election. Hold on.
If you gave me the paper ballots, I could probably turn around each one of these states. I'm absolutely convinced if you let me examine each one of those ballots, I'd pull out enough that were fraudulent that it would shake the hell out of them. If you gave me the paper ballots,
I could shred enough to make Trump the winner. Hold on.
Voting system. Even Sidney Powell, defending herself in a defamation lawsuit brought by Dominion Voting Systems, argued that, quote, no reasonable person would conclude that her statements were truly statements of fact. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
What the program I thought was nuts. Trump White House Attorney Eric Hedgman on Giuliani and Powell. I made it clear I did not agree with the idea that saying the election was stolen. Oh, is that?
Because.
Hold on.
That one of the things Mark said at some.
One of the things that Mark said that this whole thing is a plot. There is a river of adrenochrome. Have you seen Ghostbusters 2?
Point was you can't show an actual vote was flipped, which I found at the time to be a remarkable assertion because
because of the wonderful things he does.
You don't have to have the gun to see the body lying on the floor bleeding out with 5 bullet holes in it was killed by a gun.
What they were proposing, I thought was nuts. The theory was also completely nuts. right? I mean, there's a combination of Italians, Germans. I mean, different things have been floating around as to who was involved.
The Spanish, excuse me, Texas votes, ES&S, bounced it off a satellite and went to Spain so they could be counted, according to Sidney Powell. Just because they jettisoned their bullshit storyline a long time ago doesn't mean I have to forget it.
Hugo Chavez and a Venezuelan. She has an affidavit from somebody who says they wrote a software in, it's something with the Philippines, and just all over the radar.
Did you ever share, Mr. Kushner, your view of Mr. Giuliani? Did you ever share your perspective about him with the president?
I guess.
Oh, God, this is awkward. Ugh.
Yes.
Yes. Truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Get on with it.
Tell me what you said.
Basically, not the approach I would take if I was you.
Okay. And how did he react? How did President Trump react when you shared that view with him?
We said, I have confidence in Rudy.
I think I had conversations with...
I have confidence in Rudy. That's what he said. That's exactly the language he was using at the time.
Probably all of our counsel who are signed up to assist on Election Day as they disengaged with the campaign. The general consensus...
Does anybody not know the Zoom no-no of typing on mic?
...was that the law firms were not comfortable making the arguments that Rudy Giuliani was making publicly. I seem to recall that I had a similar conversation with most all of them.
I made it clear I did not agree with the idea of saying the election was stolen and putting...
But I would keep the entire conversation quiet until I could finish my book, and at this point, I obviously thought this was moronic, on all fronts, but, if I could milk that tit for another, 6 to 8 months, I'd be happy to, do so, but I wasn't going to stop laughing at Dinesh D'Souza during that time, so shit. Was it most damaging mens rea evidence so far? Oh, he knew in advance of he knew the false positive about, that it was, that they were already, they were going to count a lot of Democratic votes, specifically more so than any other election in history, because Dems voted by mail at a larger, in a larger pack than Republicans did by a huge amount. And that was, everybody's talking about the red mirage. And so he knew that was there, and he was like, this will be an opportunity. Yeah. Oh, this dude, right. So this is, right, Starwalt. A man who is upset with his chicken dinner and would like his money back. No, he does not want another half chicken meal. It's going to be as bad as the first one. Why would I want to eat something again that I just didn't like? Yes, I finished it. All right.
After the election, as of November 7th, in your judgment, what were the chances of President Trump winning the election?
After that point?
Yes.
None. I mean, I guess it's always possible that you could have, a truckload of ballots be found somewhere, I suppose. But once you get into this space, ahead of today, I thought about what are the largest margins that could ever be overturned by a recount, and the kind of stuff that we heard Mike Pence talking about, sounding like a normal Republican that night when he said, we'll keep every challenge. Nothing like that. In a recount, you're talking about hundreds of votes.
The nakeds are here? Hey, there we go. Yeah. Well, hey. Let's see. There we go. And then we go.
We think about calling a race. One of the things that we would think about is it outside the margin of a recount? And when we think about that margin, we think about, in modern history, you're talking about 1,000 votes, 1,500 votes at the way outside. Normally, you're talking about hundreds of votes, maybe 300 votes that are going to change. So the idea that through any normal...
Yeah, and every time they did change, they went Biden's way because some asshole Republican poll watcher or somebody shelved or boxed a bunch of Biden votes and tried to hide them from being counted. And they're like, oh, look, somebody, oh, those are in my drawer. I thought oh my God. Did I run my taxes through the ballot machine?
Process in any of these states. Remember, he had to do it thrice, right? He needed 3 of these states to change. And in order to do that, I mean, you're at
yeah, the porn bots were on YouTube. Yeah,
you're better off to play the Powerball than to have that come in.
That's at which point Trump, if he was tweeting, would be like, "I've already won Powerball twice today." They were all over Midas Touch's chat too. Yeah, that's a problem. You have to actually go to their source and report them. So if you guys see them, sometimes if you're in YouTube, you don't have to be a moderator. You can actually click on their channel. Like you click on them as a thing. Don't click on the link. But if you click on them as a channel, you can report them as spamming. Like that's the one thing moderators aren't needed for. Steppien. Oh, this is Bill Steppien. And congratulations, Bill Steppien. Like Dino Badala, I love him, but like he's so he's so in that conspiracy theory world sometimes. He was like, I think we know who got to Steppien. I was like, yeah, his wife and his newborn.
On November 7th, the other major news outlets called the race for President Biden. Now, Mr. Steppien told the committee that he thought the odds were, and this is a quote, very, very, very bleak, and held a meeting with the president that same day. Let's show clip 8, video clip 8.
I mean, with each day that wore on, I mean, the trajectory of the race, on election night, Trump ahead in many states, and as that week wore on, as the 3rd became the 4th, became the 5th, and so on and so forth, and the vote by mail ballots were tabulated, Trump's lead, grew more narrow, and in some places, Biden surpassed Trump in the vote totals. So as the week wore on, as we paid attention to those numbers multiple times a day, internally, I was feeling less confident for sure.
What was your view on the state of the election at that point?
Very, very, very bleak. We told him, the group that went over there outlined, my belief in chances for success at this point, and then we pegged it at 5, maybe 10% based on recounts that either were automatically initiated or could be initiated based on realistic legal challenges.
Realistic.
Not all the legal challenges that eventually were pursued. Mm-hmm. But it was my belief is that it was a very, very, 5 to 10%. It's not a very good optimistic outlook.
And he was only saying that to basically bullshit Trump that there was, so you're saying there's a chance. Right. And then we talk about the Dominion stuff. We've done this, right? Meanwhile, one peer citing family emergency. That was the early part of this. Yeah. Fox Prince had DeSantis on to do an infomercial for his new merch line. Right. Yeah. So anyway, so that's the general state of affairs in that. Hold on, move you guys up there. Hi. Yeah, enjoy the truth. Oh, it's gonna be so rough. And you have to know that some of this is stuff we've all seen. some of it is stuff that only the committee has seen, and that there's some oohing and aahing that will happen as you see how many people in Trump's circle at that time, which might, I would say, I've always been an optimist about this. You know I am. And mostly that the people who are trying to pull off the coup itself were so desperately full of shit and stupid that they were never going to accomplish this thing. And the important thing is that it also lets you know that there were people in his campaign and around him who were telling him it's not happening. It's never going to happen. This is, you lost, get over it, start making plans. And that should reassure people that there were a lot of folks in that, you know, in and around him and that do exist in the world that you may differ with, you know, politically, but were at least saying, you know, our democracy is more important than you, which is great. Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks, Kenneth. By the way, you're watching HAL Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. I'm going to let you guys go because you know, I started an hour late because the committee hearing itself, and I'll probably do that the same on Wednesday. And Philip Ittner is going to be my guest on the Wednesday morning show. And I'm thinking of, if I may, introducing the concept of guests occasionally. It might just be the, you know, like regularly on the Wednesday show, trying to bring a guest in to chit chat with about some stuff, just to introduce you folks to some, you know, some smart people I like. So anyways, if you're, you know, if you're interested, that might be kind of cool. And at the on your way out the door, smash the like button, give us a thumbs up, subscribe. If you see this later in the day, whenever your morning is, Mega Worldwide, please do that. And then Sparks Force will prevail. It's true. Thanks, Chris. Well, I will be on this afternoon at our regular time at 3 p.m. I guarantee I will have a lot of flailing and gnashing of teeth from the Trump crowd and his sycophants about this terrible partisan hoaxy hoax that's going on. That the singular thing I think that was pointed out today, and it would be curious to see whether they will avoid the topic entirely, or they try to call it in question to try to buffer it, is the idea that he knew he was full of shit about this, and he not only used it to try and keep himself in office, but to grift off of his supporters. Right? Okay, Thomas. Yeah. And to all the trolls who came by, thank you so much for helping us in the algorithm and boosting us. I have no doubt. By the way, my takedown of Dinesh's 2,000 Mules will be live today. And I'm going to post that and we'll all share it with Dinesh and all those folks. I would love to be in the sequel to 2,000 Mules, just calling him 2,000 mule shit, 2,000 piles of mule dung, and break it down with him in the room. I want to sit in that same smoky room and go, dude, let me show you your own footage and how stupid and fucked it is. Please. I'd gladly do it. Seriously. And we'll make a short clip of the Debbie D'Souza moment too, because I think that I was dying. That should be a single short, no doubt. But anyways, I will talk to you guys later. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else, and have a beautiful day. And that's all you need to know. You guys are great. I'm sure you'll be watching the news as much as I am today. So we'll just sort of pick up our conversation in a few hours. Okay, bye.